Hi, this is Lauren Arrington, and I'd like to provide everyone with some general feedback on the great drafts that you submitted. So, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for submitting these fantastic drafts, and I hope that you will find this process rewarding. It gives me an opportunity to have a clear understanding of where you are in terms of the assignment and provide you with a lot of feedback, and I'm hoping that will strengthen your final draft and strengthen your overall performance and grade. And so I did provide a lot of feedback, especially for students who gave me a full, pretty complete draft, and I even provided a sample grade. I want everyone to know that the sample grade is not your actual grade. Everyone received full credit for submitting the draft. And the sample grade is just to give you an example of how I'm thinking in terms of grading in areas where you can improve as you strengthen things. And for most of you, the draft is not complete, so it's not really a fair or accurate sample grade, because when your final submission comes in, you will have covered everything. And so you're going to receive two documents. One document is the draft that you submitted, and I put comments throughout that draft. A second document is the grading rubric, and that has the sample draft grade as well as comments. So please review both documents. And feedback can be hard to get. I am trying to give you a sense of what often happens in global health when you apply for funding, when you submit a proposal to others for review. You get a lot of feedback, a lot of criticism, a lot of questions. None of it is meant as an attack on you or to say you're not doing a fantastic job or you haven't worked really hard. It's just to try to strengthen what you're doing. And so that's the intention of all of this. And so I'm very proud of the work that everyone has done. And as you go through my feedback, it may be that I misunderstood something that you were doing. And so please feel free to let me know and to push back on my feedback as needed. And if you have questions, of course, or you want to show me things again, show me your additional revisions, please feel free to do that. Again, the feedback is designed to make your proposal even stronger. Couple general things that I want to share. One is that what we are proposing to do here, I would like it to be as simple and scalable as possible. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the countries where we work, and when we strive to address major problems or address problems in a really comprehensive way, it's often very challenging and requires a lot of work, a lot of stakeholders, a lot of partnerships. It becomes a very complex process. And so I'm not asking you to do something that extensive. Instead, I think it'd be better if we can make these projects small and kind of doable. So something that you potentially might be able to lead in another country. Of course, right now you won't have every little detail that you need to do that, but I think we can make these a little bit simpler and smaller. So in terms of that, and the first thing I want everyone to focus on really is their goals, objectives, and their logic model. Even though that doesn't come first in the proposal, that's kind of what you need figured out before you can really strengthen the rest of the proposal. And so in terms of that, please try to think of things you can do that are realistic. And so within your country, as you learn about the country, pick a region. It doesn't have to mean that this is the perfect region to do it, but come up with some rationale for, I'm going to pick this region because it's rural, and I know that postpartum hemorrhage is a big problem in rural areas where it's hard to get to the facility, or I'm going to pick this region because the rates of the rates of ANC attendance are lower in this community than anywhere else. But come up with some rationale based upon the limited information that you can find, and pick a region. If you can, pick a facility, group of facilities, or type of facilities. I want to be at health centers or the major medical center. Also think about the providers. What type of providers are you working with? Ideally, you're working with midwives to some degree, but that may not be what you're doing. But pick the provider group that you're working with if you're going to do the team, which can be very valuable, knowing that often midwives are the only people there, but in some facilities you do have physicians. Then talk about that and talk about the specific facility. Not that you have to name it, but maybe the type of facility you're going to pick, and that you're going to do a team-based approach to this project. And then also think about the numbers. How many providers are you going to work with for this? How many people can you impact? And try to be realistic for that. If you're doing a training, how many people can attend this training and make it a fruitful exercise? And then how many times do you want to do that? Are you going to lead 5 trainings or 1 training? And the scale, that is up to you. It can be, you may be thinking, this is something I want to do once and really learn from it, and then see if we can expand it. Also think about sustainability. Who's going to do this training? Is this something where you pop in and do it and then you leave, or are you going to be training people there so that they can continue this process or they can follow up? And that is very important. That's not really written into the grading rubric, but that's something I definitely want you thinking about, and I think we have been thinking about in terms of those issues around development work and how can that work really make an impact and really engage the local community and help the local community to take ownership over the work. So think about those things. Try to make it a smaller, simpler, more specific project, and I think that will help dramatically. So let's start by talking about the goals and the objectives. So when you think about your goals, I'd like for you to try as much as possible to make them SMART goals. And sometimes that can narrow it down a little too much. So I'm not gonna grade you completely on whether or not it has every single component of that, but just try as much as you can to make it specific. So for example, if you're trying to address, let's say you're trying to address an issue of anemia in newborns, and you wanted to address that through delayed cord clamping, then you might say that you're going to work to reduce neonatal anemia through an education program that's aimed at reducing neonatal anemia through delayed cord clamping with midwives in X region of Zambia, and that you're going to do this training at 2 health facilities, and you're going to see if it has an impact. That could be your goal. You've got your number of providers. You could also say that you want to see if it's going to have an impact over a certain period of time, over the next 6 months. So you've created a time frame for this, but try to make it as specific as possible, because when we say I'm going to reduce, of course at the end of the day the broad goal for that and the larger impact we're hoping to make is to reduce neonatal mortality, right? But if that's where we're starting from and we don't really narrow it down effectively, then how are we going to carry out something that's truly effective? And so try to narrow it down a little more. And then with your objectives, you want to get into what are the more specific steps that you need to take. So your one objective could be developing that or adapting a training module. That's a 1-week training module in the facility with the entire intrapartum team. Or it could be it could be that you're going to ensure that providers are in these facilities are updated on the benefits of this delayed transition with delayed cord clamping, and make sure that they understand the physiology of the fetal transition period. So then with the objectives, you want to get more specific, and you want to get into things that are actually measurable with your objective. So another example of an objective would be to think about, for example, this is a different project that you're going to reduce hospital readmission of people over 65 in this county by 10% within this time period. So that would be a very nice specific objective. So try to get very specific with that. Then with the logic model, which is very key, we're focusing on what are the resources, the activities, the outputs, outcomes, and impacts. And the more specific you can get with your objectives, then under those objectives you can come up with what you'll need in order to do them. The activities should be action statements. So this will happen, this will happen. There should be a verb in there that's telling us what will happen. Then what do you get out of this? 20 providers trained in delayed cord clamping. What are the specific tangible outputs that are going to come out of this activity? And then you get to your outcomes. What do we hope that will lead to a little later on? So 50% of births, delayed cord clamping is implemented by 6 months. Because maybe if we're at 0 right now, getting to 50% would be fantastic. And then that impact is that larger goal that we're contributing to reduction in neonatal mortality. We, of course, are not going to completely eliminate neonatal mortality or be the only intervention that's needed to reduce it, but hopefully we can contribute to that. And I think it'd be great if you want to share with me your goals, objectives, and logic model as you revise it or as you develop it, so that, because that's kind of the foundation of your project and everything else should relate to that. So then just going through the grading rubric, in terms of APA style, most of you are very good at that. Please include an abstract, because that's a great way to help summarize what you're doing at the very beginning. And please make the title specific to your project. Let me know something more than you're doing capacity building or you're reducing maternal mortality through your title. Make it a little more specific. Then for the overall organization, I think you all are good at that. You know how to lay things out. Make sure to proofread so that you can pick up on typos and grammatical errors. In terms of the introduction, for the introduction of the project, of the paper, please, please, please lead with your goal. Lead with what this is going to achieve and draw me in so that I know that everything else that's coming later relates to this goal. So lead with your goal. Let me know what you're aiming to achieve. And then you will repeat that goal later, and that's okay. When you describe the population, make sure that it relates to your project and provide a statement within the context of that description that relates it to your project, so that it's not just information for information's sake, but it is relevant to what you are trying to achieve. Also, make sure that you don't leave out the section on honoring women. Many of you have included that. Make sure that with that section, you are addressing how you're honoring women within this project. How are you listening to their voices? How might they be a part of the design of the project or the review of the project? Make sure it's specific to your actual project. And then also talk about the cross-cultural nature of this project in terms of an outside group that's coming in or an outside individual coming in to lead this. What does that mean? And what are some of the challenges, and how will you address those? Then for the background literature section, this is where you